Hey, what's going on? It's the multi-award winning recording artist, etc. And you're watching the Michael Finkley Show.
All you ever wanted was a good dude. All I ever...
On the next Michael Finkley. In the U.S. alone, there are over 3 million cases of persons suffering from the learning disability dyslexia. Our expert today tells us why. Winifred A. Winston is with us to discuss the effects of dyslexia. Next.
If I can make it through the night, just to see a brighter side, 'cause I've been working all my life just to make it.
Hello everybody, welcome to Michael Finkley Show. Thanks for joining us today. Now, many of you know I've been saying this now for the past 4 seasons that I have been in education for the past 10 years in different roles as a teacher, higher education, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And one of those things that I had to get used to as educators that, of course, each of our students learn differently, but they will be diagnosed with different disabilities that even as an educator, you may not understand. So we have meetings, we accommodate them in various ways with their learning disability, and we get to know front hand how to handle students with these type of issues. But one issue that I kept seeing repeatedly in education for me is dyslexia. And really, when I first started, I didn't know what it was. But as I began to increase my knowledge as an educator, knew what it was and how to handle students that had this certain type of learning disability. Winifred Winston is with us, and she tells us all the things, all the signs, the effects of this learning disability that we call dyslexia. So don't you go away. More information coming your way. Back in a moment. Coming up, we have Winifred Winston with us. Don't you go away. Back in a moment.
Yo, this your boy Ernest Miller, aka Excalibur, owner of Train So Are University, also Shop Talk and the Mill Experience. You are now watching the Michael Finkley Show. Check him out.
Think fam, we are heading to Nigeria. We have Nigerian actor Michael Ichevu. Monday. School districts, organizations, nonprofits, are you in search of a new promotional products company? Seegers Promotional Products is a Black-owned national company with over 780,000 products to choose from. Compared to other promotional products companies, they have the lowest prices in the industry. From pens, bags, shirts, they got you covered. They always remember that you are the customer and you come first. They always promise fast production and also fast delivery. With Seegers Promotional Products Company, you truly have the best. Check out their website at seegerspromotions.com and also on Facebook and LinkedIn. And tell them Finkley sent you. Everybody, welcome back to the Michael Finkley Show. Now, y'all, my next guest, she is the founder and the executive director of Dyslexia Advocation. She is none other than Winifred Winston. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Michael. It is my pleasure to be here with you tonight.
Oh, I am so excited. I am very, very excited. But y'all, I have to say this because we kind of met in a very unique way. Okay, so we're on these social media streets, right? And I get this message and it's saying that we may be related in some type of way. Because you saw my last name, very unique last name. Not many people have it. And you have Finkleys in your family, correct?
Absolutely. My mother, that was her maiden name, and all her life she went by Hazel Finkley. So when I saw the post on Instagram, I didn't even see the Michael Finkley Show. I just saw the name Finkley. I was like, oh my gosh, Finkley? Like, there's not a lot of Finkleys, and I know the whole history in North Carolina, you know, going to South Carolina. So I just hit you up in the DM and was like, wait a minute, who your people?
Hey, that's exactly what she did. Exactly what she did. And then the conversation began to form and I found out more about what you did. I'm like, more people need to hear this and be aware of this, what's happening in the world within what you're talking about. And so thank you, cuz. I already claim you.
Yeah.
Thank you, cousin. Thank you, cousin.
We related.
So, we're related. We're related. That's done, said, and on period. So dyslexia, right? You have this awesome format, platform for this particular issue that's happening. How did you get involved in this?
Sure. So I have a daughter. She's 11 years old, and she's my only child. And when she was about 4 or 5, I noticed that she wasn't learning to read. She wasn't remembering sight words, and she was smart as a whip. You know, at 3 years old, she's saying, "Mommy, I have to defecate." And her vocabulary is very vast. And she
I'm like, what does that mean? I would have said that. What does that mean?
No, I did. She knew it was the number 2. She knew, but I told her.
I would have asked as a parent, what does that mean?
No, she knew, and that's the thing. Like, she was here with me and her dad, and we never talked baby talk to her, right? So we just talked to her, and I explained things to her, and she asked a lot of questions. So when she wasn't learning to read, I'm like, wait a minute, she's smart as a whip. What's going on here? And so we were in a small private school. She graduated valedictorian of her kindergarten class, and then we moved to a public charter school where I told them I had concerns about her reading. But again, my daughter was a very hard worker. She was very compliant, took school very seriously after being in that private school environment. So she wasn't going to give you any trouble. And I say that because that's very important, why I was so animate about getting her evaluated. And when we did, I learned that she had a specific learning disability in reading. Now, what does that mean? Yeah. Right? You find, what does that mean? And so later I found out that meant she had dyslexia. I learned that it's hereditary. And I was yes, it is passed down in the genes. So if you think about it, I think about back in the day, right? When we say grandma would read everything to grandpa, but grandpa could use his hands and he could fix everything around the house, right? So I go back to those times where, and most folks who learn differently are very hands-on. And the school that my daughter was in, the charter school, was a public charter that was arts integration and project-based learning. So they did a lot of doing and a lot of hands-on, right? And I didn't know she was dyslexic, but I knew that's how she learned best. And so I was an educator. I worked in the public school systems at headquarters. Then later I worked in the classroom. And then I also did many years in higher education where I worked in student affairs and I was an adjunct instructor. So my lens was all over the place. Right. So I knew to be on top of this. And I still didn't know, with all of that knowledge around education, I still did not understand how to navigate the system to ensure that my daughter got help. Because there is a difference between services and accommodations, right? And so an accommodation is, we're going to give her more time. And I kept saying, well, more time is not going to help her learn how to read, right? And the service is the intervention, what's going to be different, right? And so we paid tutors, but we paid what I call homework tutors. Every tutor is not the same. We needed someone who was trained in structured literacy, who understood how to help someone with dyslexia learn how to read. And so in doing this work, I became overwhelmed. I became obsessed. Like I had to find out how to help my daughter. And what I learned, it was very expensive, right? It was very expensive. I'm talking anywhere from $90 to $123 per session. And you need at minimum 3 sessions a week. My daughter was getting 10 sessions a week. Exactly. And I'm like, what in the world? And so I switched careers because I said, how is everyone else who doesn't look like me? How are they getting help? And I found an advocacy organization called Decoding Dyslexia Maryland. And it was full of white parents, white moms, some who were stay-at-home moms, some who were wealthy parents, and they knew how to navigate the system. And I became very immersed in this organization. I became a state leader. And what I found was a lot of parents, a lot of Black parents would hit me up one-off, right? Because there are conversations and things that they want to say, questions they want to ask, that they don't necessarily feel comfortable asking a white woman, right? And so this one is hard for me because I attended a PWI, predominantly white college and predominantly white institution. Yeah. And my first job out of college, I was the only Black person in my role. That was one job. Another job, I was the only Black person in my role. My name is Winifred Winston. I was a broadcast journalism major, so I do pay attention in how I speak. Okay. I've showed up for a lot of interviews and they're surprised when they see me. And my hair has been natural for about 20 years before it was in style, before they had all these products. Okay. And so when you're the only Black person often, you unintentionally become complacent because you are always the only Black person and you can't speak for all Black people. Right. And so in this space, all I saw was this is a space for me to get help for my daughter. So when some of the Black people would come to me and tell me things or how they felt, and I'm like, oh no, they're all here to help. Their kiddo has dyslexia too, or another language-based learning disability. And then George Floyd was murdered, and we put out a Black Lives Matter statement, and I got knocked in the chest. Reality hit. Some folks who I felt were my friends, right? My allies. We're in this together. They showed me that we were not, right? It wasn't Black Lives Matter. It was all lives matter. Then it became, it's not just about Black kids with dyslexia or learning disability. We want to help all kids. Yeah, but the numbers and the data says otherwise. Exactly. It was a study out of Texas that showed that 40% of inmates were illiterate and about, let me get my statistic here right, 80%, I'm sorry, 80% were illiterate and about 40 were dyslexic. Okay? And we know that the prisons are full of Black and brown folk, right? We know that the data shows us that Black and brown children are being under-identified and over-identified, right? So we're not catching the learning disabilities. We're saying it's behavioral, right? We're saying they have a behavior problem, right? So my daughter was very compliant, very hard worker. She's not going to give you any trouble. So she's going to be that kiddo that's going to get overlooked. But then you often have children that act out, and in doing this work, we learned that her dad was dyslexic. He never knew, never identified, struggled in school, just thought he wasn't smart.
Wow. How did he come to a realization that I'm dyslexic at a later age?
Let me tell you. When she was identified, I knew he was dyslexic. I knew. I got pregnant with her in graduate school. I graduated a graduate school with a 3.5. I just went through. Right. And he was trying to earn his bachelor's. And I'm like, well, are you going to the writing center? Are you going to the writing lab? Are you getting help? I'm thinking you grown. I attended school right out of high school. And then I attended when I was an adult. It's a different field than when you're paying out of pocket. You're on a mission. And so I'm like, you're not applying yourself? And I couldn't understand why he wasn't doing well because his mind worked differently and he could remember the moon and the stars. It was just very science-based. Like it was just things he knew how to do, work very well with his hands, right? And I just knew. I knew that was it when I learned it was hereditary. But he's a man and he's 40 plus. He needed to come to that realization on his own. So we were at a private school and we were doing a tour and they go over the signs, the symptoms, because they're trying to explain dyslexia to you and try to win you over so that, you would attend their school. And he taps me and he says, I got it. And I played dumb. I said, you have what? He was like, I have dyslexia. He was like, everything that they're saying up there, I experience everything. And I said, yeah, I knew that. As soon as she was identified, I knew that. But it's so funny because when she was about 4, 5, 6, and we would do homework, he would always work better with her because their minds worked similar. He could explain it to her. Whereas me and her, we bumping heads, right? And so, when I learned that he was dyslexic, never got any help, never identified, I started saying, well, wait a minute, how many other adults? Then I started thinking about when I was an adjunct instructor. I'm like, wait a minute. I remember thinking, why are these papers looking this way? Yeah. And then I worked for one of the largest employers here in Baltimore City on an initiative to hire city residents into entry-level positions. And I was met with it firsthand. A lot of folks that I knew could do the job, but couldn't pass the assessment. And it hit me when one of my former students who I knew had a learning disability wasn't successful on the assessment. So all of these things coming together for me, and me feeling like, wow, folks who I thought were my friends, were my ally in this space, I said, you know what, I've got to focus on helping people that look like me, because it's not just poor or low income, right? I didn't qualify for any low income, but I still didn't know how to help my daughter. I didn't have an attorney living next to me. The judge, he doesn't live across the street anymore, right? We don't have that in-house network that we had before integration, right? So where are the connections and the people that know about this, and why it took so long for me to figure it out, right? And so I thought, with all the information I have now, I'm a state leader. I even took a job as director of admissions at a private dyslexia school so I could learn how to navigate this system. I changed careers. And so now, you know, I'm doing presentations at conferences with my special education attorney friend, right? Now I have a psychologist, a friend that I can DM or text and say, hey, what does this mean? Right? What does this diagnosis mean? Or how should this parent go about this? And I thought, let me build a network and provide access for middle class Black and underrepresented minorities. So dyslexia advocation came to fruition when the pandemic happened and I lost my job. So I was able to do this work full time. And we got into the Johns Hopkins Social Innovation Accelerator Program, very competitive program for startups, and we won. Yeah.
I just applaud you on the work that you do for this awesome group of individuals that need it. They need a voice, and you
Absolutely.
are for them.
Absolutely.
I applaud you on that. Thank you so much. And so within the time that you've been an advocate and learning, I'm so glad you talked about the differences between services and accommodations. So when it comes to resources, services for persons with this particular disability, what have you seen? What's offered for them?
Okay, so in the school systems, it's very important that you understand. So my daughter was told, and this is what I did not know. When my daughter was identified with a specific learning disability, which is SLD, which is category 9 under IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, right? What does that mean? I did not know. So our school at the time didn't want to say the word dyslexia, but there is nothing in the federal guidelines or anything stopping them from saying that. But once a child is identified with dyslexia, now I can do the research to say my daughter needs Orton-Gillingham or structured literacy or the science of reading. Curriculums based on the science of reading. Schools don't have that. They didn't have anyone trained in that. So these teacher prep programs aren't teaching teachers how to teach reading, right? So as a parent, you don't know all of this, right? So I'm like, okay, she has specific learning disability. Had we identified that, which they did, the areas of weakness, now how are you going to remediate that, right? That is the missing piece, because without the structured literacy, you're just giving them coping strategies, right? I don't even call them coping strategies, because guess what the picture is, right? That's not teaching someone how to read the words around the word and then figure it out, but that's not teaching them how to read. What are the sounds that each letter makes, and how do you put them together, right? And so as a parent, you don't know these things, right? You don't know it intimately like that. The school tells you, hey, your child qualifies for special education services, and we're going to create this IEP, this individual education plan, and now your child's going to thrive. No, you need to understand that document to make sure the contents in that document are sufficient for progress. And then you need to understand how to monitor progress, right? You need to understand the goals. Right? I knew that my daughter's goals on her IEP were crappy, but I didn't know how to tell them to make it better. Right? You can't possibly You cannot possibly learn all of this information. That's why you need a network. That's why you need a tribe, right? I mean, I have book after book after book after book after book, right? These books are just on literacy.
Wow.
Then I need to understand dyslexia, right? Then I need to understand my child. What are her strengths, right? What are her areas of weakness? Then you have to understand special education law, because that IEP is a legally binding document. I took training with COPA, which is a Council of Parent Advocates and Attorneys, because I wanted to understand the process. If I'm building this nonprofit and I want to partner with advocates, I need to know that they know their stuff, right? I've taken classes so that I can be trained on dyslexia and to understand it, right? Because I want to make sure that I am providing parents access to professionals who are qualified in this space. You can't possibly learn all of this on your own, but you need to understand where you need to go for help and what questions you need to ask, right? If I had to do all over again, I would have done things a little differently, but I did not know. And I immediately ran from the public school system because of my work experience there. I said, oh no, I don't have time. I don't have 3, 4, 5 years. And I was on the board at my daughter's school. And so I was able to see the budget because I worked for the public school system, and I worked in headquarters, and I worked in HR, and I used to help principals manage their budgets. I knew what it meant when our school went from single digit to double digit IEPs. And I knew the staff we had, and I knew the money we had, and I knew how hard it was to get the appropriate staff, right? So I knew things that other parents would not know and understood it on a level where I thought, oh no, I got to get my baby out of here, right? And so we went to a private dyslexia school. But I think where to ask for help and where to go, and understanding that this process is a marathon. It is not a sprint. And I talk to parents all the time who are anxious, who are depressed. I feel like I'm failing my child, and they want help immediately. And it's not going to happen immediately, right? I have parents that have reached out to me, and I'm like, this is where we need to go. And they're like, oh, okay. And they don't follow through. And then a year later, they come back and they say, oh man, I get it now. Can you help me start here? And I'm like, absolutely, let's start here, right? So I get them access to advocacy services. I get them access to affordable quality tutoring by someone trained in structured literacy. And then I help them access comprehensive evaluations.
Wow. Again, doing so much for the community. And I love it. But when we come back, more on discussion on dyslexia. Back in a moment, y'all.
Next, Winifred gives us her definition of dyslexia. Don't you go away.
It's Arisha Connor, all the way from Los Angeles, California, and you're listening to The Michael Finkley Show.
Keeping your skin flawless and clean is important, and I have the products just for you. Welcome to Mimi's Natural Pantry, where she specializes in homemade handcrafts, including lye and goat milk soaps, body butters, and sugar scrubs. All items are handmade products. All items have simple ingredients and are vegan friendly. In a world where you can barely pronounce many of the ingredients in your everyday products, Mimi's Back to Nature offers an alternative choice for those who are ready to get back into nature. Ready to order? Visit their website at mimisnaturalpantry.com. All orders over $50 have free shipping up to 25 pounds.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Michael Finkley Show. Still chatting with my dear cousin, Winifred. And as we're talking about dyslexia, so we're going to talk more about the mental aspect, but in your own words, how would you define dyslexia?
I would say it is a learning disability that impacts the ability to read, write, and spell. Now, you'll see that that definition. If you Google, that will come up. But essentially, that's what it does. It impacts the ability to do it. It doesn't mean that you cannot do it, right? It doesn't mean that you cannot do it, but it hinders your ability to read, write, and spell. That's essentially what it is. It's a learning disability that impacts your ability to read, write, and spell. And it does have other things that it impacts with your executive function. But the main thing is that ability to read, write, and spell.
Gotcha. And how do you think that this, as dyslexia as it is today, how do you think that it affects person's mental health as children, as adults? What do you think about that?
So it definitely impacts the mental health. I know I mentioned to you, I have a podcast, the Black and Dyslexic podcast, and we wrote up that grant because of the mental health. It's funded by Morgan Cares and the National Institute of Health. And I wrote it up to say that undiagnosed learning disabilities triggers mental health issues. When we look at depression, when we look at anxiety, and a lot of kiddos, especially our Black boys, you will see them act out. Either they're a class clown or there's a behavior problem because they realize at a very young age, I'm talking second grade, third grade, that their peers are moving forward and they are not, right? My daughter at second grade did not want to even try and read, okay? Her cousin wrote her a letter. She says, I said, you're not going to read it? No, mommy, you read it to me. I saw her shutting down. I saw her shutting down in second grade, right? And actually first grade, the end of first grade. Like I saw it with my own eyes. I talked with a gentleman. I used to go to the barbershop, get my hair cut. And the guy, the owner of the barbershop, he followed me out one day and he says, Winifred, I want to talk to you. He was like, I know you just went to Portland, Oregon for some conference. I went to the International Dyslexia Association conference in Portland, Oregon. And I was telling him, I'm going to stay in the Airbnb for the first time, you know. And he says, I have dyslexia. I said, you do? He said, yes, I don't talk about it much. He said, but, you know, I feel like I could have been further along in life had I gotten the help I needed. He said, I got my CDL license. He said, but they dumped me in a class with folks who had developmental disabilities or developmentally delayed, and I never got help. I found out on my own I was dyslexic, and I followed a lot of successful people. Will Smith, Usher Raymond, Kobe Bryant, Magic Johnson, Octavia Spencer, Whoopi Goldberg, Danny Glover, all these folks are dyslexic. And he said, and I thought if they can do it, I can do it. He said, and when I opened this barbershop, I felt like I finally made it. He said, and my daughter, I see her struggling with the same thing. So when we look at the numbers of folks in prison, where 80% are illiterate and 40% have dyslexia, we know there's a correlation between that mental health and that learning disability, because you know, I mean, if you think back, third grade, fourth grade, you know there were times when you felt like, oh, I got this, or times where I feel like, oh gosh, I better not speak up and say anything because I don't know that. You know what I'm saying? And
yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So undiagnosed learning disabilities, they definitely trigger mental health issues. And a lot of folks will use negative coping strategies, alcohol and drugs. Okay. They will use alcohol and drugs. And the worst thing that you can tell a child with a learning disability, and my daughter told me this, and I recently interviewed someone on the podcast, Mac Dawson. He said, don't tell me to try harder. I am trying my best. Like my daughter, don't tell me I'm not trying, right? I am trying my best. I am trying my hardest. And a lot of educators make that mistake, and they'll tell a child with a learning disability, oh, you're not applying yourself because I know you're smart. You're not focused. You're not taking school seriously. Right. And you subconsciously know that you're putting forth your very best effort, but you're still not doing well. So we see children get passed over, get overlooked, and they're sitting there struggling. And then the anxiety, the depression, then that starts rearing its head more so. Right. Because now they're acting out, or they're just really quiet because they have this learning disability. So that's why I'm so passionate. And that's why we started the podcast, to raise awareness in the Black and Brown community, to remove the stigma okay, to remove the stigma of learning disabilities. We cannot continue to associate and equate a learning disability with low intelligence.
Yeah.
We can't continue to do that. And I want parents to hear from folks in the space that they need to hear from: speech and language pathologists, psychologists, special education attorneys, special education advocates. I didn't know any of these people existed in order to help. So it definitely impacts the mental health, and not only the mental health and well-being of the child, but of the parents trying to navigate this space. I've had parents tell me they almost lost their job because they're constantly up at the school, right? Because they're being called because there's a behavior problem, or they're calling IEP meetings so often because they feel like their child's not progressing, right? And even myself, during the course of my daughter's identification, trying to pay for this expensive tutoring, right? And then trying to see how we're going to get her in a private dyslexia school, because these schools cost in the tunes of $30,000 a year, right? I fainted at work. And got a concussion, but I fainted. And when I came to, I could not move my left side or speak for about 90 minutes, and they thought I had a stroke. Now, I'm only 46, and this happened about 3-4 years ago.
Wow.
Okay. And my neurologist said, you're internalizing the stress, Winifred. You got to let some of this stress go. So it not only impacts that child struggling, but the parents are struggling too, because we still have to work. You know, we still have to maintain the home. We still have to take care of the child. And now we're trying to figure out how to help our child. And oftentimes in the very beginning, it really doesn't look like it's going to get better. I know now with the work that I do, but looking back, it doesn't look that way. And so all you keep thinking is, am I failing my child? Am I doing enough for my child? You know what I'm saying? So it definitely impacts the whole family's mental health.
Wow. And you don't think about this kind of stuff in your everyday life, right? Even when you hear the news of maybe yourself or your child with dyslexia, but you don't see the overall picture at the moment. And it's amazing to see that there is sunshine on the other side. There is sunshine on the other side, and many people need to hear that, especially when they're going through it. So I just found out that my child was diagnosed, or even myself was diagnosed with dyslexia. What are the next steps? What are your recommended next steps for them?
The next step is education. Right? Education. Learn about what dyslexia is. Learn about what remediation or interventions there are for dyslexia. One book that was recommended to me in the very beginning was Overcoming Dyslexia. Right? This is this book here, Overcoming Dyslexia by Sally Shaywitz. She has a new edition out, but that was one of the very first books that was recommended to me to really kind of understand what it is and what it isn't. It's not just seeing letters in reverse. Right? It's trouble associating a sound with a symbol, because letters are symbols, right? It's the way the brain processes that information. Right. So my recommendation is to learn as much as you can about dyslexia, so then that you can understand what your child's weaknesses and strengths are, and you can understand what your strengths and weaknesses are as that adult that may have it. And then the second step is to get remediation. It is not enough to just know your child has dyslexia and not get the appropriate remediation or intervention. You need structured literacy, right? If you go as an adult to a nonprofit or a literacy space and you're saying, okay, I need help reading, start asking questions about dyslexia. Right? Do you have anyone trained? There are several different programs. There's the Wilson, there's the Barton Reading and Spelling, there's Linda Moubell. Like, start dropping these program names. I did this when I didn't really know exactly what they were, but I said, hey, this is what I read that helps folks with dyslexia. If they know about them, that's a plus. But if they don't and they seem clueless, that gives me pause. And then learn how to get help, right? Learn how to get help. How to get advocates, right? There's a program here in the DMV area where if you are someone who have been impacted by systemic racism, you can get advocacy services and income is not a factor.
Wow.
That's the See Us program.
Wow.
Yes, I had them on the podcast. I had the coordinator, Marcy Jackson, on my podcast. So, there are resources available. You just got to know how to access them. And as Black folks, we got to talk about it, right? We got to talk about it.
That's the thing. We have to talk about it more, because if we don't, how can we resolve it?
Exactly. So educate yourself, get the proper interventions, and then access your resources and services, and just talk about it. Be open, ask for help.
I love it. You have given us some awesome wisdom. I've learned a lot. I hope that the persons that are listening have learned a lot as well. How can we find out more about you and your organization, and also your podcast?
Oh, sure. You can find us on Black and Dyslexic on all of your favorite listening platforms. The Black and Dyslexic Podcast. We're on Apple, Google Play, Spotify, you name it, we're there. It's Black and Dyslexic. It's myself and co-host LaDerrick Horn. He's an international learning disabilities advocate. He's a published poet, and I reached out to him and he said yes. And so we've teamed up to bring this content. And then you can find us on the web at soallcanread.org. My Instagram handle is soallcanread. My LinkedIn handle, soallcanread. Twitter, soallcanread. Right? You can find us on the internet.
All right. So all of us can read. Thank you so much, Winifred, for being with us and telling us about this awesome effect that students and we all go through, right, in so many ways, and affect us in so many ways. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Michael.
You're welcome. Back in a moment, y'all.
This is Michelle Ryder from The Circle Season 3, and you're watching The Michael Finkley Show.
Looking for a mentoring program for your young male between the age of 6 and 18 in Columbia, South Carolina? Well, look no further. Big Homie, Little Homie Mentoring Program is the program for you.
Under the leadership of Mr. Jamal Stroud, Big Homie, Little Homie is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that caters and mentors at-risk youth that come from single-parent homes. The organization caters to young males between the ages of 6 and 18 within the greater Columbia area. The organization is devoted to shaping and molding their life into great men of society. Big Homie, Little Homie organizes male gatherings, discussions, and even educational assistance devoted to guiding and leading them into a positive light. Making a positive attitude will help in transforming their life regardless of what is experienced in life. For more information on Big Homie, Little Homie Mentoring Program, visit our social media outlets, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Hey everyone, here's another Inspire Me moment in 60 seconds. And today's thought is, death smiles at all of us. All we can do is smile back. To everything there's a season. Whether we like it or not, we all have to deal with it. It hurts. The emptiness inside can never be replaced. However, what doesn't die are those memories. And you see, we all have the ability to smile, even though it hurts. This kind of joy is personal, it's reflective, and it will always be there when you need it most. Never abandon or forsaken the comfort it provides. Hey, that's all I got for you today. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to this message and go out and make today absolutely amazing. As always, thank you for doing all the social media things such as like, comment, follow, subscribe, and share this message on all your media platforms. Even more, hit the bell notification so you never miss a video or an upload.
I put my trust in you.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Sunday Best Season 5 winner Joshua Rogers here, and you are tuned into the one and only Michael Finkley Show.
We still
Need a little motivation?
Timothy Clifton is with us every week on Mondays to get your week started with a little motivation, all here on the Michael Finkley Show.
On an all-new Michael Finkley, Business at its best.
The founder of Kingdom Business Clothing, Lamar N. Robertson, is with us. He talks about his fantastic business and how they're paying it forward each and every day. Wednesday.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the Michael Finkley Show. I hope that you learned something today from our expert. Thank you so much, Winifred, for being with us and just telling us this experience that you have experienced for yourself through your family and how you've helped others as well. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you. If you're not already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Michael Finkley Show. Ring that bell for notification. We'll see you an email saying, hey, new content's uploaded. Please listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And for more information about what we do, visit our website, michaelfinkley.show.com. Remember, we're also on YOU42. Please check out the Michael Finkley Show channel there and all of our content and exclusive information coming soon, I promise you. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one.